So, do you remember as kids, our family members, the adults in the room, the parents, the aunties and uncles and grandparents, you go to them, you tell them that something happened to you on the playground, something that you didn't like, somebody called your name, they would tell you just ignore them. So, I'm going to argue that in many cases, that has been one of the worst forms of advice given to a young person. We give those types of advices to young people, and we also give them to ourselves as adults as well. And I'm going to make the case why I think it's problematic. So when your kid comes to you, they're talking about being teased for their skin, their hair color, or their hair texture, and they're called outright a slur. Somebody made them feel small. You tell them to ignore it. You're not teaching them resilience, right? You're not teaching them to be strong and powerful and standing up. You're teaching them suppression. To take it a step further, what you're doing is telling a kid who was actually brave enough to articulate their feelings, their experience to you in confidence. They were trusting enough to tell you about it. You're teaching them that articulation is not good. It doesn't matter. That feelings are something that need to be managed in private by yourself and silently and alone. What this does is a few things. It installs something in them over time. It installs something in you over time because somebody did this to you when you grew up. It installs the belief that expressing pain doesn't lead to protection. It leads to a false sense of protection, if anything, because the folks that you tell this to, they care. You can feel that they care, but they can't equip you. Caring and being equipped with the resources to actually deal with the situation are two different things. So you stop telling people what you're experiencing. You stop telling the adults what you've been experiencing. Eventually, you stop telling yourself. You feel the thing that happens, the slur, the oppression, and whatever situation that you feel on the playground, and even as adults today, you feel it, but you stop telling yourself it and you stop feeling it. So here's where I think what I think most parents miss, right? They miss the fact that articulation is not the goal. It was never the goal. We do want our kids to express themselves. We want them to say how they feel. But articulation alone is not the change factor that is necessary for resilience or a positive outcome and advocacy, right? Articulation is a bridge to self-regulation, right? It is a necessary bridge to self-regulation. It is a necessary bridge to boundary setting and naming the system, the person, the thing, the overarching mechanism that produced the hurt that hurt you, so that you can push back, so that you can identify what the problem is, because you can't push back against a problem that you can't identify. If I'm told to ignore a situation or ignore the system, I never really get to articulate, what the system is, how it made me feel, and I never then get to plan for advocacy on how I'm going to overcome the system so that it does not hurt me anymore or hurt others. You never get to do that. When you shut down articulation, you collapse the entire bridge. So this whole bridge of articulation becomes collapsed and never leads to meaningful change. So I'll say this, your kid does not need you to take away the pain. They don't need you to make the pain disappear. Your friend as an adult, or the people that are around you as adults that want to advocate and support you, they don't need the pain to be taken away. The pain doesn't need to disappear. They need you to help them make sense of the pain. What does this pain mean? What does it mean that I've experienced this as an individual or even as a collective in society? What does it mean? Because it often means something. They need your help figuring that out, figuring out what to do with it. That is the difference between raising someone who can advocate for themselves, raising someone who, just goes quiet. Growing up, we heard sticks and stones. That is a lie, that we tell children when we don't know how to deal with their pain. If your kid comes to you hurting and says that, somebody has done something to them egregious, you say ignore them, you're not protecting them. Whether you mean well or not, you're training them to self-silence. And the reason so many adults can't name what's going on with them today is because they were that child that was told to just ignore it. And now they don't have language for the many experiences that they had, but it's in their body. They feel it. They have the visceral, physical reactions to certain situations, but they don't know how to name it. And that's troubling. So I'll say this last thing: emotional suppression is not taught from cruelty or from people who are malicious. We learn these things from people who care about us. And that's not to demonize them, but it is to reflect on, challenge, do better.